Hi everybody, my name is Jin Ben and welcome to iHome Church. One of the great things about working as a pastor of iHome Church is that I get to hear and receive lots of news and emails from many of you. And last week I received this one email from a German sister that really brought things home for me in so many ways. She sent me a lovely email wishing me a happy birthday, and at the same time including in her email a picture of my father sitting on the curb on the streets of Rome, Italy. And the picture captures the exact moment when my father received the telegraph that I was born in Korea. And so it's almost like getting a glimpse into history that I've never had the opportunity to experience or see before. And so it was an incredibly moving moment for me in that just seeing that picture, I kind of got, one of those experiences where you see your life for the last 50 years in slow motion. And so many things really kind of moved me to tears, and I realized that my longing for my father and my longing for my mother, my longing for the true parents or my parents have always been this consistent kind of a calling in my heart, because they, as the true parents, even though they're my own biological parents, have been so busy in the work of providence, and their whole life has really been a display of their mission work. And so even though they had to simultaneously somehow build a family during the time of all of this providential restoration that they had to undergo, and in the process really stand as that victorious Adam and Eve, the family had to kind of trudge along and follow along while they were doing incredible things. And, as one of the members of the true family, I know that a lot of us grew up without really having the chance to have that one-on-one intimate time with our father and with our mother. And even though, here I am, over more than half a decade years old, but that yearning as a child, really wanting to be with the parent, just never goes away. And in fact, it seems to grow the older I get in age. And so it was kind of a wonderful moment for me receiving this incredible birthday gift. And I always say God works in mysterious ways, and certainly God worked again mysteriously in my life, and really sharing with me something from the past that is just so meaningful in my life. And I was kind of looking at this picture while at the same time hearing many people reaching out to me, asking me different questions, the state of affairs of our community or of our movement and the state of the true family. And one of the questions that I hear over and over again is the question, what's wrong with true family? And, sometimes these questions come in a form of really kind of a sincere yearning to understand and to kind of grasp with what is going on. And of course, sometimes it comes from lots of anger and resentment. But nonetheless, they are the same question in that people want to know, why are there so many difficulties in true family? And the short answer to that question is that, a lot of things, we have to deal with a lot of things as a member of God's first family. First of all, because it is a family. As Father has often said and shared with us, the family is really the textbook of true love. This is where we learn how to rub up against each other. This is where we learn how to grate against each other. And many times the grating is extremely painful because, it is the most intimate relationship that can really rub salt in our deepest wounds. And but still learning how to take that grating and understanding it and really responding with love to maintain this grateful attitude and learn how to really build a loving family despite all the difficulties and despite all the obstacles and despite all the pain and suffering. This is what makes family, a real family. And by going through these difficulties, it really affords us an opportunity to become that compassionate men and women of God, a man and a woman of God that can really embody the teachings of true love and really stand as that person to really kind of embody the characteristics of true love by helping us to develop into a person of somebody who is absolute and somebody who is unchanging and eternal and unique. And the incredible thing is we have our true parents here with us at this time to really kind of be that example, to be that mentor, to really be that embodiment of the teaching or the philosophy of living for the sake of others. So it's an incredible time to be alive. And I noticed that lots of people, when they're asking me these questions, they're trying to grasp, where are we in Providence and where are we headed towards and why are we going through so much difficulty? And one of the things to keep in mind is that, we were kind of working in the age of the wilderness for the last 40 or 50 years. And it's been very mission oriented in that all we needed to do was really kind of obey and faithfully follow out the commands that we were receiving from true parents, and we were good to go. But now we are transitioning from that age of the wilderness to that age of the settlement. This is when mission work changes slightly, in that the mission work in the time of the wilderness, many of us were single, we didn't really have families of our own, and even many of us who had families of our own had to go through extreme levels of sacrifice in order to remain steadfast on the work that needed to be done. And many of the first generation, as well as my parents, the true parents, have sacrificed children along the way. And mission work came first and family came second. But in the age of the settlement, this is really the time when we need to take the philosophy of living for the sake of other and have it be made flesh in the context of a family. This is where the work, really the heavy lifting of building ideal families come to play. And in order to build really beautiful and functioning and healthy ideal families, we have to start out with a compassionate person, somebody who understands or is capable of empathizing with the other. We have to learn how to work with the other, to rub up against each other, to grate upon each other, but still, because we have a common purpose, we have a common goal, we work towards that goal, and we work towards establishing that purpose in our own lives, because we are going to not give up on each other, and we are going to continue to grow as this body called the family. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of expand in ways that we never thought imaginable. But sometimes expanding and building that resilience takes an extraordinary amount of practice, persistence, and strength that only comes from doing the work ourselves. And so a lot of us, who were not given manuals on how to be great spouses or how to create beautiful families, many times we were left not knowing what to do. But regardless of whether we knew what to do or not, with or without our manual, we were well intentioned in that many of us tried our best. But I think many of us, if we were to really ask ourselves, the question, did we really do the best that we can? Well, we could have done better had we had perhaps better manual or a better understanding of what it takes to build successful children, or really help children develop the resilience that is really the key factor in becoming that competent, successful, self-sufficient human beings. And one of the things that I think we need to kind of think about as a community in the making as we move forward is that there were lots of things that were sacrificed, and there were a lot of children that were sacrificed along the way, including the true children. And we realized that we didn't have the best of upbringing. A lot of the second gens did not have the best kind of a childhood. Neither did we, the true children. And we didn't have the best kind of an upbringing. And so many of us really failed to develop this thing called resilience, the ability to really overcome difficult situations and grow with experience, in that we didn't really have that incredible mentors or parents, because we never had the opportunity to build these bonds that are incredibly important in helping us to grow into able or competent adults. Because our parents were always away, so hard at work and sacrificing so much for the sake of the mission. But understanding the kind of a tradition that we come from, now that we understand that we are moving from the age of the wilderness to the age of settlement, we really have to kind of take a fresh look at where we've been, where we are now, and where we need to go. And so I think it's extraordinarily important that we can kind of learn from a lot of the studies that have been done on how to create competent individuals, especially when they were born into high-risk situations. And when you honestly look at the childhood of my upbringing or my siblings' upbringing or the upbringings of second generation, a lot of us could be labeled high risk, in that many of us grew up without our parents. It's absentee parentism. And many of us suffered and experienced traumatic situations in and outside of the family. Many of us never had the ability or the opportunity to build extraordinarily strong bonds that can help us be resilient. And one of the things that we realize is that in order to build resilient, a child needs to have at least one relationship with an adult who is competent, emotionally stable, and is sensitive to their needs. But when I look at many of the blessed children that I grew up with, or I took care of, as the senior pastor doing Loving Life Ministries, I realized that many of the children never really received that in their childhood, and therefore they were dealing with great difficulties in their young adult life. And likewise, true children were in the very similar boat as well. And so one of the studies that I like to share with you was the study done on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. And these academics really kind of studied 678 children from the ages of birth, from the moment of their birth to well past their midlife, to age 40. And these were children born into kind of high risk. And a couple of the things that they created a list as to what would what would we see as a high risk a child, in that, many times a lot of mental health specialists concentrated on all the negative factors that contributed to making a person into a loser of society. But this study in particular studied how, despite the difficult situation that the child was born, how was it that in this Kauai island of Hawaii, that 1 in 3 grew up to be competent, successful adults? And so it's a fascinating study, but basically there are 3 things that the study concluded. And they were saying that there were certain prospective factors in the individual themselves and in the family and also in the community that resulted in their being successful in their adult life. They said when you looked at the individual, 1 out of 3 that tended to be successful in life, they tended to have a cheerful disposition. They tended to have a positive outlook on life. They tended to be a little bit more social than perhaps the others. And when you looked at their family situation, despite the high risk, or many of them were born to mothers who had less than an 8th grade education. They were born into a family that experienced incredible traumatic situation. There was lots of emotional discord that the child had to live through, and so on and so forth. A lot of the things that true family, or a lot of the things that blessed children kind of had to endure during the age of the wilderness. And when you looked at these kids, you realized that, you could check off on all the list or all the points on the list as to why they would be considered high risk. But when you looked at their like who the child was, they tended to be have a much positive disposition than the others. And in the family, they had somebody, either the parent or the uncle or one of the extended family members or the grandparents, that were competent human beings, that were emotionally stable, and that were incredibly sensitive to the needs of the child at that particular stage of their development. And when they looked at this person, how they did in terms of the community, they were successful in procuring or being that proactive kind of a child to solicit help from community of elders or from teachers to really kind of help them develop competencies in their area of where they wanted to work or devote their life to. And so you realize how important not only the individual disposition is, and when I look at these children, they kind of positive people tend to look at things as when you look at a cup with water up to the halfway mark, they tend to look at the cup as being half full as opposed to seeing the cup as half empty. And so, and kind of like a disposition towards having a grateful heart towards life seemed incredibly important. And then having that one person or a mentor-like figure in their family that they could rely on emotionally, like an emotional anchor, that were responsive to them and sensitive to their needs, and a community that could be incredibly supportive in helping that child develop as one of their own, really kind of as that proud and confident representative of that community to go on to do incredible things. And you realize that when you look at these kids, a lot of them, still struggle on through their teenage years. And a lot of them only make their breakthroughs in becoming that competent, or that turning point takes place in the second half or in the third decade of their life. In that, many, even if they went through an extraordinarily difficult teenage years, as long as there is an opening of opportunity, and this seems to be crucial, in the thing that really turns their life around. They see an opening. And these young people, the ones that tend to be successful, take that opportunity and proactively seek it, proactively interact with it with the support of the community. And so some kids in their late 30s turn their life around with the opening of opportunities because they tap into continuing education. They tap into developing vocational skills. Many of these kids who were struggling in their late teens and early 20s were married, but the first marriage was somehow rushed into. Whereas when they found stable partners, many of these kids tended to have second marriages. And this second marriage was definitely something that they came to through thought and not something that they rushed into, really kind of wanting friendships and understanding. As long as they had, stable marriages, these turning points tended to be life-changing. And if they were introduced to a form of religious worship where they were actively encouraged to participate in community, these seem to be the kind of factors that really turned a person's life around. So to a lot of people who are asking, what the heck is wrong with true family? I remind all the brothers and sisters that, the family, true family, is no different from your family or anybody else's family in that we are a work in process and in a work in progress. And despite the difficulties of our childhood, it really depends on our ability to have that grateful or that positive disposition and working in conjunction with this mentor, one or two incredible people that can be kind of like our spiritual and our emotional mentors throughout our life, and with the support of the community that really wants to see the future of our movement do well. Instead of finger pointing each other, instead of saying, well, whose family is doing well and whose family is not? Why is that child the way it is? If the community can really develop a sense of compassion and really start practicing that from the community's point of view and really develop the sense of wanting to work with each other, wanting to connect with each other, because everybody in our community is our family. Everybody is our brother and sister. And so don't look at true family as some cardboard cutouts that is basically target practice for a lot of us. But really, we are your brothers and sisters. You are our brothers and sisters. So if we want our community to be that successful, a community in this age of the settlement, we gotta start out with our disposition. We gotta change the way we are thinking with ourselves and decide to be that compassionate human being. And despite what we have gone through in the past, instead of being resentful, that our parents did not live up to our own expectations, we need to forgive the past. We need to forgive our childhood. We need to forgive our parents. And in our forgiveness, honor them with our love. And in our love, continue to build our future by really owning our 5% responsibility, by really owning our lives, by telling each other we are in the work of resilience building. Building an ideal family, building any kind of a family, is a difficult job. But it takes commitment, it takes persistence, and it takes a whole lot of love. And it takes a whole lot of devotion. But it can be done. And the incredible thing is that throughout all of this, we have our true parents here who are really our mentors, really helping us and teaching us how to be that absolute, unchanging, and an eternal and a unique son and a daughter of God. And that's why, one of the first commandments of the 10 commandments is honor our father and mother. Why does it say honor our father and mother? Why does it not say, in a Christian sense, honor only the father and, only follow the mother if you think she is living up to your expectation of what a mother should be? Why does it clearly state that we have to honor our father and mother? Well, because God is our heavenly parent. We need to start with God. And in Chen Sung-gyang, Father talks about how in the Old Testament we called God Jehovah. In the New Testament we called God our Holy Father. But the incredible thing and the liberation of the foundation day is that Father talks about how now we have to address God as our heavenly parent. So when God says honor our father and mother, God is reminding us that we need to start with God. And then we need to start with our true parents, who is the physical representative of God in our lives. And then we need to really respect and honor our own father and mother. Not disparage them for being financial failures, but really understand the sacrifice and honor them for the sacrifices that they have laid, which allows us to stand on their shoulders and move the providence forward. If we constantly are in the process of condemning the past, condemning everyone around us, we're going to be caught in this vicious cycle of trying to restore the same thing over and over and over again. We need to stand on a foundation of our elders and move it forward. And that really takes a certain level of understanding. It really takes a certain level of compassion. And it really takes a certain level of really pledging ourselves to work on this resilience, this ability to go through all kinds of expansion, all kinds of suffering and difficulty, and yet still remain true to our compass, which is God and our true parents. And really being that fired up, inspired people, work with our passions to become that compassionate son and a daughter of God. So during this time of difficulty, instead of asking what's wrong with true family, why not ask what's right with true family? One of the things that I did when my first marriage was really going through some deep waters was I had many sessions dealing with counselors and therapists trying to work out our differences. And one of the things that this therapist said to me was, you gotta work with what's positive in your life. I am just amazed that you are alive. Why don't we start from there? And for me, that was kind of like a lightning bolt. Because when you are stuck in the middle of an incredibly difficult situation, you are thinking about all the things that are wrong with your life. But this counselor really reminded me that there is something positive, that in a way, I have not let life defeat me, in that I am working on my resilience because I am taking each day at a time. I'm alive. And so when I look at my family and people asking, what's wrong with the true family? I'm thinking, what's right with the true family? Despite our childhood, despite the lack of parents in our life, despite the lack of enough people, competent people, emotionally stable, that were sensitive to our needs, there are a lot of us still living. And so I start from there. And there are still many of us trying our best to be that son and a daughter of God. So we need to start looking at the positive, starting with the positive. And when we start doing that, not just with ourselves, but with our families and with our communities and with our extended families, then our lives, the perception that we may have had about our life starts to change. And instead of a dismal, hopeless future, the future becomes shining and bright and incredibly open with possibilities, starting with you and me. So when we look at the word family as an acronym, FAMILY, for me it's a reminder to really start the day uttering the words Father and Mother, I love you. I love you, God. I love you, true parents. And many of us, it takes a while for us to really get to a place where we can confidently and genuinely and authentically say this with an incredible understanding of heart. But sooner or later, as long as we keep on working on kind of looking at the word in a different way, starting with us by focusing on the positives, it becomes easier and easier. And one of the things that I noticed when I was playing around with the acronym is when you read the letters backwards, YLIMAF, it reminds me to always kind of start with you. Yes, you. We need to love one another. You need to love one another. As inspired sons and daughters of God. M, the letter M, mindful on our path. And the letter F, and fearless in our devotion. And so as I kind of remind myself of the need to really start with ourselves and love one another as inspired sons and daughters, mindful on our path and fearless in our devotion, I want to leave you with this incredible song by Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's called Teach Your Children. And it goes something like this. You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by. And so become yourself because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well. Their father's hell did slowly go by. And feed them on your dreams, the one they pick, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh and know that they love you. And you, of tender ears, can't know the fears that your elders grew by. And so please help them with your youth. They seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well. Their children's hell will slowly go by. And feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh and know they love you. So this is really a song about letting the past be the past, but really owning our future and owning our present by deciding to do what we're going to do. And we have to forgive our parents. Our parents have to forgive us. But during the whole process of walking this journey together, the whole point is to become a family, learning how to love each other, learning how to stand together as that united family, as that one family of God. So brothers and sisters, teach your children well and have a great week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well. Their father's hell did slowly go by. told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. And you of tender years can't know the fears that you elders grew by, and so please help them with your youth. They seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, the children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they fix, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh.
If you have any questions and comments, please leave them below the video or go to jinmoon.com and use the contact form. And don't forget to subscribe to our email list. And if you would like to contribute to our work here at iHome Church, just click on the donate button. Thank you.